YouTube, Mose Knows fam. Welcome back to the channel. I am your man, Mose. Listen, the NFL season through 3 weeks has been crazy so far, and that has implications for our fantasy teams. So guess what? We're going to jump right in. Listen, stay tuned. We got top performers, find out how I did in fantasy this week, and then we're going to jump into some start and sits and get you prepared for this week of NFL action. Be right back.
Sorry, Mose couldn't be here, but he doing the Mrs. Mosley thing right now. You know, they're out doing. They're enjoying Valentine's Day is what I was trying to say.
I got you.
Nah, the worst.
You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. I guarantee real takes, ain't no faking that at all. If you don't know, you gon' know. Mose knows, tune into the show. Not a game, nitty gritty, ready to go committee. Mose should be the CEO. Too solid, too real, too 100. I'ma keep it real when you don't. Just that real gold talk. 24 karat words. San Francisco 49er fam. Realest squad on the earth. The 5 God, number 5, taking us to 6. Young killer Trey Lance. New era, new season. Mose got you covered. Go ahead and subscribe. 2022 this year. Got a whole nother vibe. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. Tune in for the vibe. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. Mose knows.
You don't know nothing. You don't know, but know that. I know that this fantasy season is crazy because the NFL season is crazy. I've been saying it for the first 3 weeks. The NFL has not calibrated itself. The things that's supposed to happen is not happening right now. The things that's supposed to go the way we think it's supposed to go, it's not going that way. In the first few weeks of fantasy season, weeks 1, 2, we had the usual suspects. What I like about it is parity. We're starting to get some unusual names on these lists, specifically with the top performers. So let's jump right into that. Let's see who the top performers are. Now, of course, where we're starting at is a name that's been here before. 2 weeks in a row, Lamar Jackson has been the top fantasy quarterback, had another dynamite week, 18 of 29, 218 yards, 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception, 11 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown. I believe they confirmed this statistic that Lamar Jackson is the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for more than 100 yards and rush for more than 100 yards in the same game in back-to-back games. He did it last week. He did it again this week. That's why he's our number 1 fantasy quarterback. 39.42 fantasy points this week. For week 3, Lamar Jackson is right now early favorite for MVP. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. Our second top fantasy quarterback is going to be Jalen Hurts from the Philadelphia Eagles. This kid is finding his groove. He's got a number 1 weapon in A.J. Brown. He's got a 1B in Devonta Smith, go-to tight end in Dallas Goedert. The offensive line is protecting for him, and it's showing in his numbers. Against the Commanders, he went 22 of 35, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. No turnovers, 9 carries for 20 yards, 27.6 fantasy points for week 3 for Jalen Hurts. I can only imagine him continuing to gain chemistry, him and this offense continuing to find their groove, and we should be able to see some more solid fantasy weeks from Jalen Hurts to come. Moving over to the running backs. We got Khalil Herbert. Now, Khalil Herbert came in because David Montgomery went down with an injury, and he took the most of his opportunities. 20 carries, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 targets, caught both of them for 12 yards. Total fantasy points week 3, 30. 30.9 points. These points are based on PPR. So he got 2 points for those receptions, 1.2 for the yards. So 30.9 points for Khalil Herbert. Absolutely dynamite game against the Houston Texans. Not something that you expect from him since he is the number 2 running back. But again, you know, when you make a roster, whether you're a second string or third string, if the guy in front of you goes down, then it is your responsibility to be ready to go. And again, Khalil Herbert took full advantage of that opportunity. Now, this week, like I said, there were a lot of unusual suspects. Now, our second top performing back technically is not Jamal Williams. It was Derrick Henry based on PPR numbers. But I wanted to include Jamal Williams here because he had a really, really good game. He did not have 320 yards receiving. I should have fixed that. I must have missed that one. I think he only had 20 yards, and he didn't have a receiving touchdown. So my apologies for the typographical error there. But he had 20 carries for 87 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 targets, 2 receptions for 20 yards. And he did not have a receiving touchdown, but 24.7 fantasy points per game. Jamal Adams had a really, really solid day. The Lions looked like they were going to squeeze this one out. The Vikings came back, last-second touchdown by Kirk Cousins to seal the game. But I like how this Detroit offense and their defense, how this Detroit team is looking through the first 3 weeks. Moving over to wide receivers, our top fantasy wide receiver is somebody who one of our top quarterbacks was throwing to. Wide receiver DeVonta Smith from the Philadelphia Eagles, 12 targets, caught 8 passes for 169 yards and 1 touchdown. Total PPR fantasy points this week of 30.9. I was upset about that because on one of my leagues, I have both A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith, and I didn't put DeVonta Smith in my flex. I still won. So, you know, thank the Lord that happened. I still won. And the crazy part about it is I had David Montgomery on my flex. He goes down and gets hurt. Only gives me 1.1 points. And DeVonta Smith on my bench, 30.9. So I was hot, but I still found a way to get a W. I don't even know how, looking at the rest of these points. This was a low scoring matchup. Goodness gracious. Let me double check this again. Yeah, I got the dub. Low scoring on my end. I could have really blew it out the water if I had started DeVonta Smith. And that's the conundrum because A.J. Brown was going off all season up to this point. Even this week, he had 19.5 points. But sometimes it's a double-edged sword starting 2 wide receivers, even though there are 2 good wide receivers like A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. Listen, if Jalen Hurts can continue to prove that this is the type of passer that he's going to be, then I might have to think about putting DeVonta in the flex and just rocking out with it. Yeah, I was tight about that, but good for DeVonta. Our second leading wide receiver in fantasy points this week is Matt Collins. Again, a name that you don't see on these lists or my list often, but a name who had a really, really solid day, albeit in a loss. Matt Collins, wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, 11 targets, caught 8 passes for 158 yards and a touchdown. Total PPR fantasy points this week of 29.96. He had a really, really solid day. Unfortunate that they couldn't cap it off with a W. Tight end, we got a tight end back on the list. Is that right? I think that's right. Making sure I don't have any typographical errors. Hold on, y'all. This is live. Let me just make sure I got the right numbers out here. Okay, good. That's right. All right, just making sure. I already had one typographical error. Can't have 2. Mark Andrews, top fantasy tight end. Listen, his chemistry with Lamar Jackson is undeniable. 13 targets, caught 8 passes for 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. Total PPR fantasy points this week of 28.9. Absolutely had a monster day against this Patriot defense. Got to show love to the kickers. And kickers need love too. Greg Zuerlein, again, albeit in a loss, 16 fantasy points from the kicker position. He made all 4 of his field goals. Fortunately, the Jets did not get into the end zone, so he didn't make any extra points. He had a long on the day of 52 yards, so that's a +5 in the score column. I'm starting to love this piece of this segment. Last week, we didn't have anybody that was worthy to put in this position. Week 1, obviously, we had Minkah Fitzpatrick. And for week 3, Jalen Petrie. Man, I absolutely loved this young guy coming out in the draft. They said he could play corner. They said he could play safety. They said he can move all around the defense and be an absolute playmaker. And we were finally able to see that very, very early in the season. Jalen Petrie, 5 solo tackles, 3 assists, 2 passes defense, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, and 1 fumble recovered. Now, it's very rare that you see leagues that have a defensive player. I don't play in any leagues that you start a defensive player, but I know whoever had Jalen Petrie, whoever started Jalen Petrie week 3, I'm sure they were pleasantly surprised at the fantasy points that he was able to put up. 23.3 fantasy points from a single defensive player. He had an absolutely monster game, albeit in a loss. Again, 2, bottom tier teams in the NFL, but both came out, fought, played really, really hard. And Jalen Petrie did everything that he could do from the defensive side of the ball to help his team get a win. They just weren't able to pull it out. And on to our top defense and special teams units. We have 2 this week as both scored 18 points. First, we have the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Washington Commanders. They had 9 sacks. That to me, let's talk about that a little bit. To me, that seemed a little personal because they was going up against Carson Wentz. And they made sure that white jersey that he had on did not stay white. 9 sacks from this defense, 2 forced fumbles, 1 recovered, 18 fantasy points this week from the Eagles defense and special team unit. And then we have the Bengals going up against the Jets. So look at Elijah Vera Tucker just on the turf with his helmet off. Goodness gracious. Trey Henderson with the flex. DJ Reader in the background. Listen, defense and special teams of the Bengals, they did not have 9 sacks. I got to update that. They had 4 sacks. Again, typographical errors. I'm doing too much at a time. 4 sacks. They had 4, not 9. 4 sacks, but they had 2 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and they recovered all 3 of the fumbles that they forced. Again, they also, too, had 18 fantasy points from a defense and special team perspective. Let me get back to this screen. Good. Minus the typographical errors. Those are our top fantasy performers for week 3. A lot going on. A lot of players, a lot of teams doing some really, really special things. You love to see it. Jumping in the chat. We got 49er Chanel. What up, faithful? Homie Kenny Goldsmith. What's going on, Kenny? Thank you for being here. Didn't know there were leagues where you can start a defensive player. Yes, there are some fantasy leagues where you can start a defensive player. For me, that takes too much time, too much diligence, too much research. I don't have time to figure out, what defensive player I want to start and who I want to put in. Because I'm sure, although there are teams that are starting defensive players, I'm sure nobody had, if you had to pick a player from the Steelers, I'm sure nobody had Minkah Fitzpatrick week 1. I'm sure everybody had TJ Watt. Going into week 3, would you have said, who from the Texans defense do I want to start this year? Let's go with Jalen Petrie. I don't know. I just know that per the stats, he had a really, really, really good week. And And again, like I said, if you were a fantasy owner who started Jalen Petrie, more power to you, because that was really, really, really great luck. Brandon Figueroa says, "What's up, Mose? Defensive player, just do linebackers." It does make sense to do linebackers because of the points that they give for tackles. So a lot of times linebackers will have upwards of 10, 12, 15 tackles a game. So you can get solid, points from defensive players. I know if it was me, some weeks I would be feeling pass rushers. So maybe I go with Nick Bosa or an Aaron Donald or Myles Garrett or TJ Watt. Maybe sometime, depending on the matchup, I might be feeling corners. I might be feeling a Jalen Ramsey or somebody like that. It's just so hard. It's harder to gauge who's going to get interceptions. It may be a little bit easier to gauge who can get sacks, and it's definitely easier to gauge, like Brandon is saying, who's going to get tackles, because the linebackers are one of the top guys that are in on every defensive play on tackles, whether it's bringing down a receiver, bringing down a tight end, or bringing down a running back. You have your linebackers who blitz, your linebackers who drop into coverage. So maybe a Devin White would be a really good linebacker to have on your team, because he's going to get tackles. He's going to blitz the quarterback. He can drop into coverage and get interceptions. So you guarantee the tackles that he's going to get. And then if you have, get a bonus from an interception or a sack, that kind of helps you. But again, that's a lot of information and research. Me personally, I just don't have the time to do that. And I would be pulling my hair out like, oh, do I want to start this guy this week? I don't know if he got a good matchup. And then I'm looking at all the available defensive players. Like, now Jalen Petrie has a good day. Now I got to think about adding him and putting him in my rotation. And then it's a lot. Yeah, I'm not bothering with it either. Says, I have a defensive player in my Yahoo leagues. Who do you have, Brandon? What defensive player are you starting, or who are you looking to start this week? And it says you only start one defensive player. Yes, Kenny. So in some leagues, I think it's just a defensive player. In other leagues, you can start a defensive player and you can start a defense and special teams unit. So I think they have it. They have some league. I'm still I know fantasy a little bit. This is called Mose Knows Fantasy. But I'm still getting into like the details and the nuances of some of these fantasy leagues. So I do believe in leagues that I've seen in the past. There are some that you just start a defensive player, and there are others where you start a defensive player and a defense and special teams unit. So for example, I got Fred Warner in one of them, and my other I have Roquan Smith. So for example, you could start Fred Warner and the 49ers defensive special teams. You can start Fred Warner and somebody else defensive special teams. So if you had Fred Warner and Buffalo, kind of best of both worlds kind of situation. If you had Roquan Smith, Eagles defense, or any combination of one player defensive special teams unit, you could do something like that. Again, they are really getting next level with fantasy football. Again, they are stepping it up a notch. And I think they're making it trying to make it a little bit more challenging, for guys that have been playing fantasy football for 10, 15, 20 years. It's another step up. It's how do you manage your team? How do you manage the waiver wire? Especially with the single defensive players that you have on your team. What are you looking for? What are you watching for? Are there any trends that can help you determine and dictate what player to start what week? I'm sure there's some fantasy guru out there that was like, yeah, give me Jalen Petrie week 3 versus the Bears. I'm sure there was somebody. I'm sure, and we'll never know the truth, but I'm sure there was somebody out there that did the homework, did the due diligence, and either made an educated guess or just was like, look, these are my options. It's a fair bet to choose this young kid ready for a breakout game. As a rookie, he's been playing well for the first 2 weeks, going up against the Bears. Don't really trust their wide receiver weapons. They haven't utilized Darnell Mooney like they're supposed to. Cole Kmet really hasn't been involved in the offense much. And so far, Jalen Fields has not been throwing the ball all over the yard. So maybe this is a game where Jalen Petrie could have a monster outing, and he did. So kudos to Jalen Petrie, man. That young kid is an absolute baller. Absolute baller. Now let's take a look at how I did, because the first 2 weeks, y'all know I was upset. I felt like I drafted well. Felt like I strategically put pieces in place to be successful. I scored the second most points in week 1, scored the second most points in week 2. Both of them ended up as losses. Well, we no longer have this is supposed to be an overlay. Oh, I didn't download the transparent background. Don't worry about it. I got off the pine. We ended at a 2-game losing streak, which I'm proud of. But I'm in 2 leagues. My primary league through Nitty Gritty Niners, and I have a league through my job. I went 2-0, so I won in both leagues. Finally got the dub for week 3. Let me pull that up for you because I didn't download the right thing. A lot of stuff going on in the Mose Knows house. I won by the skin of my teeth too. Like, it was super close. 102.2 to 101.54. I barely won. No thanks to the Los Angeles Chargers defense, who did not show up against the Jaguars. Excuse me? What? I got -4 points from the Chargers. Like, I'm this close to benching them, but I know as soon as I either bench them or drop them completely and put another defensive special teams unit in there, they're going to go off because they still got Derwin James and Kenneth Murray and J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack, even though, Joey Bosa got injured. But -4 for my defense, but everywhere else was positive. Josh Allen going to do Josh Allen things. I got 26.7 from him, 15.1 from Jalen Waddle, 14.4 from Drake London, 13.3 from Austin Eckler, who has been a disappointment so far. And I'm trying to decide if I want to sell on Austin Eckler now or just give him time. But Austin Eckler has been a disappointment, especially since I drafted him like number 3 or number 4 overall. Breece Hall gave me 15.2. I need to find another tight end because Pat Freiermuth only got me 6.1. He's been a disappointment. I started Noah Brown from Dallas. He got me 10.4. He was a part of my start sits. I started Noah Brown, and I overthought it because I had Marquise Brown in my flex. But I was thinking, okay, Cardinals versus the Rams. Cardinals haven't been playing well. Now he got to go up against Jalen Ramsey. Bro, he's going to be shut down. But Cardinals were down. They had to pass a lot. They had to figure out a way to get him the ball. And they did. So he got 28 points, but he was sitting on my bench. So I'm still debating whether I want to go Marquise Brown because Atlanta plays Cleveland. But Atlanta's he's not on Atlanta. He's on the Cardinals. Cardinals play Carolina, and the Cardinals are on the road. So do I want to start Marquise Brown or do I want to start Noah Brown again, who's at home against the Commanders? Now, that's tough. The Commanders could throw out another dud on defense against Dallas. It is a division game. They didn't play well against the Eagles. It's 50-50, and that's why a lot of this is how you manage your squad and how you make these decisions. It's 50-50. Either the Commanders are going to come out and they're going to play on fire and they're going to play better because of the dud that they put up against the Eagles, or they're going to be in that same slump. Dallas is going to look at the Eagles game plan, tweak some things that fit them a little bit better, and going to blow them out the water again. And then really make the statement, are the Commanders the worst team in the NFC East? They might be, but I don't know what to do. So I'm going to have to sit on that. I'm going to have to mull over that a little bit. I know Marquise Brown right now is the number 1 until Hopkins comes back. So that is something that I got to think about, and I have to weigh those options. But again, good week. I'm putting up 100 points at least each week. So what was week 1? Week 1 was, we about to do live on air math. 143.48. Week 2 is 141.38. And then week 3 was what? 102.2. Let's do some quick math. 8 and 8, 16, 1. 4, 3, 7, that's 10. 3, 1, 1, that's 5, 2, 7, 8, 3. So total of 387 through 3 weeks. And then if we divide 387 by 3, 1, 2, huh? You sure can get an apple, baby. So I'm averaging 120. I'm averaging about 130 points a week. That's good. That's good for me. My team is clicking, averaging close to 130 points per week. I wish I had different results week 1 and 2. Listen, if I'd have played anybody else those 2 weeks, I'd be sitting at 3-0 right now. That's just not how the cookie crumbles. But we will keep you guys up to date every single week, win, lose, or draw. Listen, I lost the first 2 weeks. So if I get blown out, y'all will see me get blown out. Follow me on this journey every week on Thursdays to see how my fantasy team is doing. Looks like this is going to be a quick show this week. Let me jump back into the comments and see if we got anything new. Kenny says, I'm sure it was too, but I don't know how they figure it out. I don't know. We play. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Uh-oh. Week 4. I play Brandon. Okay, this is perfect, Brandon. Now that we know, let's go over this matchup. So at quarterback, we got Josh Allen, me. So my players will be first, and then Brandon's players will be second. So we got Josh Allen versus Tom Brady. At wide receiver, we got Jalen Waddle versus Brandon Ayuk, and Drake London versus Corey Davis. At running back, we have Austin Eckler versus Derrick Henry, Breece Hall versus Alvin Kamara. At tight end, we got Pat Freiermuth versus George Kittle. In the flex, I still don't know what I'm doing yet. We could have either Noah Brown or Mark. It's one of the Browns. Noah Brown or Marquise Brown versus Tyler Boyd. Kicker, we got Brandon McManus versus Tyler Bass. And then defense and special teams, we got Los Angeles versus Los Angeles. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay. So we got Tom Brady versus Kansas City. Rematch of the Super Bowl. Ayuk and Corey Davis. I do like my wide receivers a little bit better. I say you got the edge on running backs. It depending on how they play. If Kamara is healthy and he can go, and that's the NFL Europe game, because that says Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Okay, so Henry and Kamara versus Eckler and Hall. I'll give that to Brandon. Tight ends, we have Freiermuth versus Kittle. I would give that to Brandon, but I might shock some people later with my start and sit. Let's just say that. Noah Brown is projected to get more points than Tyler Boyd, but I would go Tyler Boyd over Noah Brown. But I don't know. Noah Brown is the number 2, where Tyler Boyd is the number 3. But he still has good chemistry with Burrow. McManus and Bass, that's a push. Both teams are away. Buffalo might be more inclined to get in scoring position, so I'll give that to Brandon. Defenses is definitely a push. Defense and special teams, I have Chargers. He has Rams. To me, that's a push, because I don't know what Chargers team is going to show up. And I don't know what Rams team is going to show up. We may get good Rams that shut the 49ers down. We may get bad Rams where somehow Jimmy Garoppolo corrects all of his mistakes from last week and put up 35 points. But so it's going to be a good matchup. So Good luck, Brandon. Obviously, I don't mean that. Nah, man, it's all love. So we're gonna monitor that, and then we'll be back next week. Hopefully, Brandon has time to tune in, and we'll discuss that matchup. Kenny says, when I used to play, used to think I had drafted well, and boom, somebody I'm playing against probably went off for about 30 points. Listen, I think that's the beauty of fantasy football, right? That's the beauty of playing fantasy, because you get players who, like I said, this week we had Mac Hollins go off. Now, who knows if Mac Hollins was even on anybody's roster? You know what I mean? So somebody probably was like, let me have Khalil Herbert just in case, because even if David Montgomery is healthy, he hasn't been performing. So let me get Khalil Herbert just in case, and boom, he goes 20 for 157 and a touchdown. So that's going to be an L. Wouldn't trust the Commanders. We have a W. They have a W as they. What's the fantasy numbers you got tonight? Miami versus Cincinnati. I'm not good with predicting the numbers. And it really all depends on what type of game it is. It is an away game for Miami, so they're in Cincinnati. It shouldn't be too cold yet in Ohio, so the weather should be fairly. It should be in this, mid to high 60s by kickoff. It depends. It depends if we have another game like the Bills and Dolphins, where it's kind of low scoring for the most part, or do we have a shootout? Do we have a 42 to 38 kind of game where both teams are just going back and forth? You got Burrow going to Chase and Tua going to Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So it really all depends on the type of game. Obviously, you can't go wrong with the quarterbacks. You can't go wrong with the wide receivers. The running backs are a little bit different story. I would trust Joe Mixon a little bit. This Dolphins defense has been good against the run, but I would trust Joe Mixon more than I would trust any of the Dolphins running backs right now. We haven't seen Chase Edmonds really go off, even though he had 2 touchdowns last week. They were from inside the 5. I think both were at the 1. Haven't really seen Raheem Mostert go off like we thought he would in this offense, especially with the speed on the outside. So I would definitely, I'd be okay with the quarterbacks. And I don't like starting guys on Thursday night, but the Tuas, the Burrows, the Chases, the Waddles, the Tyreek Hills, you can't sit those guys just because it's Thursday night. So you got to start them. Brandon says, good luck. He says, Tyreek about to be on a mission tonight. I think so. Okay. Fantasy subs. Last segment of the show. We're going to get you guys up out of here. Who are we starting? Who are we sitting? Taking a look at some of the information that I have. Some of the things that I've compiled in my studies. Quarterbacks. I'm looking at starting. Oh, I mean, there's a few people that I could start. I'm looking at and did some research on points allowed to quarterbacks. So defenses allowing points to quarterbacks. So these quarterbacks you should start. Again, I talked about Joe Burrow. Miami is giving up the most. They are currently ranked last, giving up 26.28 points to quarterbacks in fantasy. So starting Burrow is a no-brainer. But who are guys that you could start in the event that you need a starter? Your starter's injured. You may not like the matchup, whatever the case may be. Some of the top teams, Buffalo, number 1, only giving up 8.32 points to fantasy quarterbacks. San Francisco, number 2. My Niners only giving up 10.26 fantasy points to quarterbacks. Bengals 3, Broncos 4, Texans are 5. So maybe if you got, you probably not going to sit Lamar, but maybe if you want to sit Stafford versus the Niners, if you want to sit Derek Carr versus the Broncos, you're probably not going to sit Herbert versus the Texans. But, if there's any other matchups that you don't like, here are a few of the matchups that I do. Arizona Cardinals are currently ranked 25th, giving up 21.35 points to fantasy quarterbacks. Baker might be a good start if you need somebody. If you want to fill in, if you're 0-3 and you're looking for a spark and you're trying to figure out how to get more points, Baker could be a good option. Now, I know it's Baker Mayfield. I know that he's not quite the one, but just going off of statistics and a lot of this fantasy football is gut, it's feeling, but it's also analytics too. So just going off of analytics and the Cardinals being the 25th ranked team giving up points to fantasy quarterbacks, that could be an option for you. Also, the New York Jets, they're ranked 20th, giving up 20.3 points. So maybe you look to start Mitch Trubisky this week. Again, not somebody who's a world beater, not somebody who you're going to start. He's going to get you 35 points, and you're going to be like, oh, I'm riding with Mitchell Trubisky the rest of the season. No, these are one-off type of scenarios. And it was a lot of these start sit advice early in the season really isn't going to make much sense because a lot of our starters and guys that we drafted high are going to be playing. The NFL doesn't start bye weeks until week 6. So it's not like guys are on a bye and, okay, my quarterback's on a bye. I don't have another quarterback on the roster. Who do I go to? A lot of these will start making more sense when we start seeing those bye weeks. Okay, what teams are on a bye? Who's not playing? If you don't have a backup quarterback or a backup at any of the other positions, who could you find on the waiver wire to possibly help you out? Right now, this is just about I don't like the matchup or I need a spark because I'm 0-3. So just give a look at Baker and Trubisky, and if it's something that you want to throw out there, go ahead and do that. Running back, I'm going with Jamal Williams. Again, if you need him in the flex or if you need him as a starter, Seattle is one of the worst defenses against the run, and Detroit is at home. They've been playing really, really well, and I think they have an opportunity to get up early in this game, and then which means they'll be running the ball a lot more. Yes, Detroit has DeAndre Swift in the building, but I think Swift and Williams are a 1-2 punch. And later on in the game, when you're trying to continue to wear the defense down and run out the clock, that could mean more touches for Jamal Williams. Again, he had a solid week in week 3. He can follow that up with another solid week against a pretty poor defense in the Seattle Seahawks. Wide receiver, I'm going Noah Brown again, simply because the Washington Commanders are ranked 31st at giving up fantasy points to wide receivers. They're currently giving up an average of 34.2 fantasy points to wide receivers. So, yes, CeeDee Lamb has an opportunity to go off, but so does Noah Brown. And I was evident in what we saw against the Eagles. A.J. Brown went off for 19.5 points, but Devontae Smith went off for 30.9. So, if the Commanders come in with that same game plan, we're going to stop the primary target and you have to beat us with the secondary target. I think Cooper Rush and Noah Brown have enough chemistry to maybe not put up 30.9 like Devontae Smith did, but I think Noah Brown has an opportunity to give you really, really solid points from, a flex or a wide receiver 2 position. That's why I'm in such a dilemma. I don't know if I want to stick with Noah Brown this week or go back to Marquise Brown just because he had a dynamite week. I don't want to sit Drake London because Drake London looked like he's becoming the number 1 option in Atlanta with Marcus Mariota. It should have been Kyle Pitts, but Drake London is the number 1 option in that passing game. So I'm not sitting Waddle because he goes tonight. Come on, I don't even know my password. Man, get the face thing. That works. I'm not sitting Waddle. Don't want to sit London. And then I got Noah Brown. So it's either Noah Brown or Marquise Brown. Or maybe I sit Drake London on the road in Cleveland and start Waddle and Marquise Brown. That's tough. Let me know what y'all think. I know this is supposed to be Mose knows, but let me know what y'all think. And this is the dilemma that I get into because I start thinking about stuff and then I overthink and then I second guess and then I be messing myself up. So I might have to sit on that one a little bit until, Sunday comes. And then lastly, we're going to go tight ends. Again, looking at defenses giving up the most points to tight ends. The New England Patriots are ranked 29th. Currently, they're averaging 12.73 points, fantasy points to tight ends. We saw what Mark Andrews was just able to do to them. And I think with Green Bay trying to still find who Aaron Rodgers' go-to weapons are, if Robert Tonyan is healthy and he's playing, which for all intents and purposes, I think he is. I didn't get any injury notifications for him. Let's see. Yeah, he looked like he's a go. And I mean, he got 7 targets last week against a Buccaneers defense that's much better than the Patriots. So I could definitely see Robert Tonyan having a good game. So if you need a tight end, which he's not available in my league, so I can't scoop him up. But if you need a tight end, if you don't like your matchup, Robert Tonyan might be a good one. Who am I sitting this week? Sitting Davis Mills. Like the young kid. Now, this is just off of a gut feeling. Even though they're on the road, the Chargers cannot put up back-to-back poor defensive performances. And even without Joey Bosa being there, I feel like this defense is going to turn some things around because they got embarrassed last week against the Jaguars. So I'm just sitting Davis Mills purely off of an emotional response. The Chargers cannot have another week like they did against the Jaguars. So sit Davis Mills because he's just in the path to catch the wrath of the Chargers, trying to make amends for the poor performance that they put on the field in week 3. Wide receiver, I'm sitting Juju. I love Tampa's defense. Their corners are solid. Their safeties are solid. Their pass rush is good. I think their pass rush will be able to get home a few times against this Kansas City Chiefs team. I feel like they're going to do a lot of the same things that they did in the Super Bowl matchup. Obviously with some tweaks, some modifications, just to give Kansas City a new look that they're not prepared for. But if you are starting Juju or if you have him in the flex, I would look to sit Juju this week. Running back, Antonio Gibson. I don't see him having a good game against the Cowboys on the road. So again, if he's one of your top 2 or if he's in your flex, go ahead and throw him on the bench. Last but not least, again, a lot of people not going to like this. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to think about doing this to one of the top guys at this position. I might sit Kittle this week. I know Brandon don't want to hear that. Brandon don't want to hear sit Kittle. But here's the thing. Rams secondary is playing really, really good lately. And their linebacker core is improved with the addition of Bobby Wagner. Now, he's not Legion of Boom Bobby Wagner. He's not 25, 26-year-old Bobby Wagner that was flying around the field. But he is a wily veteran. And he's going to man and protect the middle of the field. And the way Jimmy Garoppolo played last week, if all he's going to be doing is throwing short over the middle, Bobby's going to swallow all of that up. Pause. Bobby is going to man that middle. He's going to control it. He's going to be able to shut down Kittle. He might get an interception. That's just how it happens when Bobby Wagner plays the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. So I don't see a lot of volume for Kittle. I also see, as a fan with firsthand knowledge, I see maybe a difference in game plan from Kyle Shanahan. I feel like to neutralize that pass rush and Aaron Donald, he's going to have to run the ball more. So instead of running the ball 19 times like we did against the Broncos, I can see us running the ball 25 to 30 plus times like we should be doing, or at least be trying to do in every game. The Broncos game is a game that we could have done that and we didn't. I feel like we're going to try to get to 30 plus this game to neutralize that pass rush. So I'd sit Kittle. I would. I don't know if that's going to affect what Brandon thinking, but I'd sit Kittle. Who we got? Okay. Kenny says, I think Stafford going to throw on us 2 on Monday Night Football. Yeah. I think he's going to try. What I'm looking forward to seeing is who's going to step up and stop Cooper Kupp, because our corners don't travel. So are they going to put Kupp in the slot, which they like to do? And is it going to be Samuel Womack or Diamador Lenore? Now, Womack has the speed, but he may not have the knowledge to deal with what Cooper Kupp brings. Diamador Lenore has the knowledge, but he may not have the speed. So I want to see how we handle that. Oh, you meant 2 picks. Okay, I'm cool with that. Oh, I'm cool with that then. Okay, I wasn't understanding. He said going to throw us 2. That's okay. I got hooked on fine. I got to understand, I wasn't understanding, Kenny. You meant interceptions. You think he going to throw us 2. So, yeah, if you got Matthew Stafford, you might want to sit him too. Again, what did I say? Fantasy points allowed to quarterback. San Francisco is ranked number 2 in the NFL, only giving up an average of 10.26 points to quarterback. So that might be somebody you want to sit in Matthew Stafford. So, yeah, I think he might throw us 2 as well. I mean, he threw us a couple last year, so I can see that again. Shout out to Amateur Draft Scout, a new name that I haven't seen in the chat before. But thank you so much for tuning in, Amateur Draft Scout. Appreciate having you. Thank you so much for dropping in. Nice, my man. Okay, Mose, good job. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And my brother, Fair to God, checking in. What's good, bro? Listen, bro, we done already talked, but I'm excited now for Atlanta. Whatever you believe in, you believe. I believe in God, and I believe God does certain things a certain way just to let us know who he is, and let us know that he's thinking about us, he cares for us, he's watching over us. I planned my trip, for Atlanta. I was going to go with one of my homies. He, wasn't able to go. So I planned my trip, and I was just going to go dolo. I'm still going dolo, but Fair decided that he was going. He was like, yo, where you staying at? He was able to get the same Airbnb, so it's broken up into sections. So, he got one section, I got another section, and we got a shared common space. So we might be throwing a little party at that joint in Atlanta. Oh, don't tell nobody. But we might be throwing a little party at that joint, whatever, because we got the crib. And then he's like, yo, where'd you get your ticket at? Showed him where I got my ticket at to the game. He was able to get a ticket in the seat right next to mine. So all of NGNT will be in Atlanta. But me and my bro Fair, we're going to be rocking out for the weekend. That's going to be so dope, man. I'm so excited for that. So I appreciate you checking in, man. Hope all is well with you and the fam. It's gonna be lit, bro. It's up. Like he said. It's up and it's stuck. Listen, man, love and appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. Any time that I get to jump on here, talk football, and chop it up, with you, my Mose Knows fam, I really, really do appreciate it. If you have any other questions about your fantasy team, you know how you can reach me. You right here at my Mose Knows channel. If you're not a subscriber, come on. It takes 2 seconds. Hit that subscribe button. Become a part of the Mose Knows fam. Once you're family, I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. Then take another 2 seconds and hit that bell icon so that you get notified every time new content drops right here at Mose Knows. That's lives. That's videos that I'm posting. You got to hit that bell icon so that you get notified. Throw a thumbs up on the video. Drop a comment below. Listen, if you're watching this video, you kind of got some questions about some things that I said, or you want to know more, drop a comment in this video. You can hit me up on my social media, what.mose.knows, Twitter and Instagram. I respond to DMs. You can shoot me if you don't do social media, and if you want to be anonymous and not leave a comment on the video, hit me on my email, what.mose.knows@gmail.com. All the links to all of this social media material will be in the description box below. And I'm on TikTok. I got a video going up tonight. After I do this, I'm going to hop over, record that, get that all squared away. I'm doing my picks for week 4. Listen, NFL is not doing me. NFL is doing me dry right now. Like I said, the NFL is on his head, but I love the parity. I love the uncertainty, the unpredictability of what we're getting in this NFL season. That's why we watch. That's why I create content. Again, love and appreciate y'all, and I'll catch y'all next week. Peace.